This episode, along with other cartoon episodes, was originally going to be part of my Cartoon Crisis 2 schedule, but again, with loop-loops of changing schedules in between, I have to pick a different episode, just because that episode hasn't been talked about. And let me tell you that even if I did review this episode back in November, I don't think that it would make a difference for how ungrateful the characters are against Jimmy, who is small. And let me tell you that this episode instantly retcons of how much Jimmy hates being called short and tiny in the movie. In the beginning of this episode, the other characters make fun of Jimmy's size, and this is where the episode instantly becomes problematic, because if you're gonna retcon a plot involving Jimmy completely upset against other people who will keep calling him short, which leads to him using his device to become much bigger, then you really need to understand of how much development Jimmy had after the last 2 seasons. This is the 3rd season, and for me personally, it's way too late to actually do a plot involving Jimmy's size, along with the other characters shrinking down as ants. Yes, I'm totally aware that the citizens of Retroville aren't really nice to Jimmy because of the inventions that he made, which caused havoc in any other capacity, but when it comes to making fun of his size, it just makes the movie completely pointless. And whenever I completely think about the movie, I usually think that Jimmy is somehow a contributing factor even with the mistakes that he made. And besides, considering that he makes major improvements in this show, that is really saying a lot compared to how he just tries to prove a point that he isn't a terrible person, despite the fact that his inventions don't usually go as planned. When Jimmy and his friends go to Retroland to go into one of the rides, he can't go on them because he's too short. And this is a plot hole because in the movie, he went to almost all the rides when Retroland was open. So it really makes no sense other than just to have him use his Shrinkway for revenge. And one of the kids bump into him, causing the Shrinkway to be flying to the hit the target minigame, and the coach, who is one of the teachers from school, used the hammer, and you can see that he saw the Shrinkway in display, and he wasn't prepared to move his hammer. He just moves it back, and then he still does it. I'm doubt that the coach is that blind because he was wearing shades the entire time and he can see instantly. So it really makes no sense of the fact that he didn't stop himself from making a serious mistake. And since he completely hit the target 100%, the Shrinkway completely destroyed, which causes itself to electrocute the entire town of Retroville. And you know what that means. Everyone completely shrunk, and the only way to get back to the normal size is for Jimmy to rebuild another Shrinkway so that he can resize all the citizens in Retroville. I would consider this as the best part of this episode, but the thing is, it's not really anything special. It's nothing against the animation or the fact that what they do with the comedy later on is not really effective, but for what makes this episode a lot more difficult to be taken seriously is that it was all started all because Jimmy got bumped into someone when he was upset when someone made fun of his size. And the thing is, I don't really blame Jimmy whatsoever because he got bumped and the coach completely destroyed his shrinking way. And as far as I'm concerned, if you seriously expect me to believe that a shrinking way, which is one of the many inventions that Jimmy has made 100% perfection without any setbacks, can easily do something like this because it got destroyed. Granted, the episode title card is a lot more promising and it's not false advertising, but with an episode involving Jimmy's size and the fact that his invention caused everyone to be shrinking, and it just leads to the majority of the episode continuing on while him trying to rebuild the resizing way, it really makes this entire plot involving Jimmy's size a lot more meaningless since that they don't know what to do with it. Let me tell you that if Back in the movie, well, people made fun of his size and his brain. It's really something that Jimmy was a total outcast in front of everyone. And then when they completely go to the planet to rescue their parents, it's when Jimmy found some other solutions in order to help them regain their parents before they get eaten by the giant chicken. And let me tell you that is the type of character development involving Jimmy when it comes to him being intelligent, and it shouldn't be taken seriously because of his size. And the montage where we see the other characters just trying to move on while being shrank is humorous, but on the other hand, it just misses the point of people making fun of Jimmy's size in this episode, because it's never been brought up whatsoever when they get shrank. And the sprinkle of irony in this episode is when everyone gets shrank, they just don't even know what it's like of what Jimmy spent most of his life as a scientist. And I'm saying this because, well, the amount of times that Jimmy uses his shrinking ray, and there was not once that there was a huge setback or a malfunctioning error, shouldn't they instantly be used to what Jimmy is going through with the fact that he's just trying to reverse the issue instead of just making things worse for the other characters? Because like I stated earlier, it wasn't entirely Jimmy's fault that all of them got shrank in the first place. As for the space bandits in this episode, I think that the whole purpose is just to make this episode 22 minutes. Let's be really honest. Even though that these aren't really the best Jimmy Neutron villains when it comes to their confidence, it still doesn't make me appreciate what they're doing of just selling every single citizen who is small so that they can get more money. Granted, they're the space bandits, but at the same time, they're also running away from the law from outer space. I would have given these characters some credit if the whole purpose of returning to Earth is to find the employee who works at Max Spanky's. You know, the same character who is the manager and Jimmy, Sheen, and Carl work with, and the fact that he became a popular meme from the show. It's completely forgotten about it. I mean, granted, it could be plans for the 4th season, but since that DNA Productions went out of business, I can guarantee you that the whole purpose of returning to Earth is just to find revenge and completely just trying to get more money. And that's it. That's literally the biggest issue I have with these characters, is that their plan from the ending of Men at Work never happened afterwards. As much as Men at Work is considered a mixed episode with Jimmy Neutron fans, it just has a cliffhanger that just ends up going nowhere. And if you seriously expect me that the McSpanky's restaurant is just gonna be a spaceship and nothing more, then I can guarantee you that this entire ship is just there just so that this episode can have some kind of conflict. And in my opinion, it's not really a good conflict. With the citizens of Retroville being trapped, Jimmy Neutron came up with a strategy to distract the space bandits in order to take over their ship. His plan is to put mini transmitters into the ears of the space bandits and completely having them listen to their conscience. And for some reason, they do not recognize the voices of Jimmy, Carla, and Sheen. The same characters who almost steal those Astro Rubies. Literally, the only thing that's actually entertaining in this is that Carla actually mimics different voices. He mimics Cindy's mother, and now he's mimicking one of the space bandits. You know, as much of how entertaining this is, it still doesn't make up for the fact that Jimmy's plan is just pretty much one of his weakest. For one thing, the fact that the space bandits instantly are dumb enough to not remember the names of Carla, Sheen, and Jimmy really makes this completely unbelievable. I mean, they're not the smartest, but I can guarantee you they're not the dumbest. And secondly, if you seriously expect me to believe that this entire episode has a conflict of the characters mimicking the other people's brains with their conscience and just completely using them against each other, then I'm really sorry. It really doesn't. Granted, the Space Bandits isn't really one of the most memorable villains from the show, but on the other hand, I think that there could have been a different other strategy to make this better. The climax in A Beautiful Mind was much more better than this, and that was when the space bands took advantage of the main characters. And if any of you guys are gonna say, well, the ending involves Jimmy making a speech about if you're little you can do great things, so his strategy is somewhat valid in this. But here's the issue. Right after Jimmy gets a reward for his accomplishment, Cindy bluntly told everyone that it was all Jimmy's fault since that his shrinking weight got destroyed. Which I remind you, he got bumped and the coach destroyed it. Jimmy had nothing to do with it, and the fact that this entire episode is mainly about making fun of Jimmy's size, and then at the end of the episode, people just completely ignore about his speech, it really makes this 22-minute episode completely pointless. And what makes this even worse is that Cindy isn't even a main character in this episode. In the Science Fair episode, I can at least understand because she was at least the main character, but here, she didn't even came up with the idea of adding consciousness to the space bands whatsoever. It was all Jimmy. All that Cindy did was pull a rope so it can cause the space bands to fall into one of the escape pods. Well, not really one of the escape pods, but one of the pods that you can instantly get trapped of. I don't know what you call those, but my point is that the fact that Cindy just takes the credit, even though that Jimmy did everything he could to get everyone back home, and the fact that he didn't destroy his shrinking way, really makes this entire episode difficult to enjoy, all because of this ending alone. This is one of the worst episodes from the 3rd season of Jimmy Neutron. If this episode wasn't mainly about making fun of Jimmy's size that retconned the messages from the movie, and the ending didn't ruin the entire episode of meaningless, then maybe I would have easily tolerated this episode a little bit more. I can tell that this episode had potential like every other bad episode, but the thing is, the more I watch this episode and the more of how I watch the other episodes and movie from this show, then it really makes this episode nothing more than filler. And that is saying something when an episode is 22 minutes long than an episode that's 11 minutes long. I give this episode a 3.75 out of 10.
Let's get this started again. Me and my whole crew, we live with no rules. Let's get this started again. So if you feel like me too, there's only one thing to do. Let's go. Pay down, call the taxi cab, got a case